and you get some old video of Tom Vu. Anyway, he's a little Vietnamese guy. And he was hilarious. He used to say like, you lose, or you friends say you lose, come to my seminar, but we make you lots of money. And
always with the Rolls Royce, right?
Yeah, with the Rolls Royce and the girls. He always had girls in bikinis everywhere he went. It was completely insane.
So this inspired you?
Absolutely, yeah. If this loser can do it, anybody can.
Welcome to the On Fire Podcast, episode 13.
With your hosts, Matt
and Kellen. On Fire is a weekly podcast where we discuss financial independence, life hacking, frugality, minimalism, and living within your means.
Do you like this podcast? Do you love this podcast? Then why not make it official and declare your love for this podcast by leaving a written review on iTunes?
This episode is brought to you by the Ontario Real Estate Conference 2018, or OREC 2018. It's a 2-day event being held at the London Convention Centre in Canada on May 26th and May 27th. If you wanted a chance to come out to meet a bunch of other previous guests, this would be your opportunity. Guys like Graham Stephan, Jeff Weibo, Michael Rosehart, Dan Warren, and a ton of others. Check out their website at orec2018.com. They've also offered a discount code for On Fire listeners. So check it out and use the coupon code LDNOnFire to drop the price to $50 for the weekend.
Full disclosure, I'm the host of OREC 2018, and this advertisement only cost me $50 right now, because no one else has been against me. If you're interested in being a future sponsor, slide into our DMs on Instagram at OnFirePodcast.
Today's guest, Dan Desveaux, is a real estate investor in Sarnia, Ontario. If the idea of owning an abandoned water park that somehow still cash flows intrigues you, you'll want to listen to this episode. Dan has some hesitations when it comes to the idea of lean fire, but I'd be lying if I said that a loftier goal of $10 million doesn't intrigue me.
I love how honest and open Dan was in this episode with sharing his whole life backstory. Our audience is in for a real treat.
Let's dive into the interview with Dan Desveaux. All right, so Dan, welcome to the show. Happy to have you.
Welcome, Dan.
Awesome.
And so one of the first things we would like to do on the podcast is just kind of jump into your backstory, get back to the roots. Just kind of lay it out for us. I know you've kind of had a pretty interesting story. Even the story on how you got into real estate investing was kind of interesting. The idea of no money down buying, all that. So just paint us a picture. You're based out of Sarnia, Ontario.
Yeah, I have an insane story to tell you the truth. I used to drink a ton, like weekends, party hard, work hard, play hard, that kind of stuff. I decided to go to university after doing a bunch of crappy jobs. I said, you know what, I got to do something with my life. So I thought, I'm going to university. So I didn't realize it was going to take so long, but the whole process I was in school for 8 years. Oh, wow. I was in college for 3 and university for 5. So I kind of just stayed in that whole academia, couldn't figure out what I wanted to do. I took art. I figured if I took art, it'd be easy. You get paid a lot, right? I was going to be an art teacher. I got out of school, couldn't get a job as an art teacher. So I thought, well, what I'll do is I'll do construction for a living. And I did that construction job for about 2 years. And then I guess you could say it was the best thing that ever happened to me, but I squashed a disc in my back. And I was out of commission for 6 months. I had to get back surgery.
Oh, shit.
Yeah. So I thought it would heal slow. I mean, I thought I was going to be healed in a couple months. The doctor said, it's going to take 6 months to be back on your feet. And of course, I said, I'm going to be fixed in 2. I'll prove everybody wrong and I'll be running around 2 months. It took me about 4 months, actually. But to me, that was a long time. So I thought I was going to be healed fast. So I got healed up. I left that job and ended up moving back to Sarnia. That was in Toronto. I moved back to Sarnia, living in my dad's stinky, nasty basements because I had no money. I had to do something. Living in this basement, it was horrible. It was all depressed down in this basement. And one night I was watching TV, probably all pissed up at 3 a.m. One of those late night infomercials came on. This little Vietnamese guy named Tom Vu. You guys probably don't know who Tom Vu is, but anyway, you have to Google who Tom Vu is. You have to YouTube and you get some old video of Tom Vu. Anyway, he's a little Vietnamese guy. And he was hilarious. He used to say like, you lose, or you friends say you lose, come to my seminar, but we make you lots of money. And
always with the Rolls Royce, right?
Yeah, with the Rolls Royce and the girls. He always had girls in bikinis everywhere he went. It was completely insane.
So this inspired you?
Absolutely, yeah. If this loser can do it, anybody can.
And for our audience, this was Ty Lopez before Ty Lopez was a thing.
Yeah, that's basically what it was, yeah. So listening to this guy, it was quite funny. And I got this whatever epiphany that I was going to do this. And the funny part is that the next day I go out there and I'm actually driving around, and sure enough, I see a sign on a yard that says Will Finance. And I thought, I wonder if this is what he was talking about. And sure enough, I called the number on the phone. I actually took a picture of that Will Finance sign. I still have it to this day. That was like 15 years ago. I still have that picture. So I have the picture of the Will Finance sign. I called the guy and said, listen, what is this? Is this like a rent to own or is this a lease option? Like I told him. The guy said, yeah, and sure enough, I ended up buying this house. Luckily for me, I didn't know what the hell I was doing. And back then, there was a lot of people out there preying on people who didn't know what the hell they were doing. And they still do it today, obviously.
Absolutely.
We all know somebody who's in that racket. If they just get somebody in the house, they have no intention of ever buying the place. Yeah. They're there for a year. They tell them that, like, this guy told me every story in the book, right? All the bullshit stories this guy told me. If you fix up this house really nice, then the bank will give you a mortgage. If every bullshit story he told me. I fixed up the house. I spend probably $30,000, $40,000 on the house in this 2-year span I had. At the end of this lease option that I had, I didn't realize it, and this is stupid, but of course I was the stupid person at the time, not knowing any of these things. I went to the bank. I had a job. I figured they'll give me a mortgage. Well, I still had a student loan at the time. I still owed about maybe $15,000 on my student loan. Well, sure enough, the bank said no, and I was blown away. And of course, this is a month before this thing came due.
Oh no!
Perfect timing for this guy. So I called him up and said, I can't get a mortgage. And he said, well, you're going to have to get a mortgage or else we're going to kick you out. And I had no idea. I don't even know if the guy even told me that part. But after that, so I had a month to find a mortgage. And the funny thing is so I looked everywhere. I went to every bank, couldn't get a mortgage. And then I ended up lying to RBC Bank and told them I didn't have a student loan. And back then, they didn't check.
Are you serious?
Yeah. Luckily for me.
Another world.
I waited on pins and needles. I don't know. It was divine intervention or something. But anyway, so I got a mortgage through RBC. Anyway, that led to, so I got that mortgage. That basically saved me. I took that $30,000. I ended up selling the house, and I took that $30,000 and I parlayed that into, I bought a strip mall. I convinced a guy to hold a mortgage on a strip mall. Actually, the reason I ended up actually even looking for the strip mall is because I still had the little construction business going, and I needed some warehouse space. And there was this crappy strip mall, and it had a warehouse in it. And I thought, well, I'd go try to rent the space. It was a really bad property, 5 buildings. It had a bunch of apartments and stuff. And anyway, I wanted to rent this space. He wanted $1,000 a month, I think, to rent this warehouse. I convinced him. I said, well, listen, why don't you just sell the Plaza to me? And I knew that this guy wouldn't be able to sell it to anybody else because it was so run down. And I convinced him to hold a mortgage, basically the exact same lease option I did with the house, right?
On a strip mall.
On a strip mall. And the funny thing is that strip mall, it's insane when you think about the numbers today, but that strip mall I paid $325,000 for. It's probably worth $1 million today. It's been 15 years, mind you.
Wow.
But that's a pretty good build-up of equity.
Do you recall the terms of that? Like, how much did you have to put down on that?
Yeah, so I had to put, all I had was $30,000 when I sold my house. So I told the guy, this is all I had, $30,000. He wanted a lot more down, but I convinced him to do the $30,000. It actually took 6 months to convince the guy because he didn't want to do it.
That's less than 10%, so...
Yeah, so it's pretty close to 10%. But he wasn't going to sell it to anybody else. Yeah, and I ended up, you know what's so crazy? And I think about now, I've actually told the story a few times, and I think this is how crazy this is. I bought the Plaza with $30,000. I had to sell my house, so I have nowhere to live. Mm-hmm. Okay, $30,000 is all I have, all the money I have. No money in the bank. I still have my student loan. I buy this Plaza. It has, it's completely falling apart. It's a total wreck. I have all these bad tenants. Half of it's empty. I have no money to fix up this place. And I never even thought of it. Never even thought of it once. I thought, I'll just fix this place up. It literally needed $500,000 in repairs. And I bought this place with no money, thinking that eventually, I don't know what I was thinking. How insane is that? Right?
That
Now, if you
is.
did, see, that's the shit that if you did that stuff today, right, those are the guys that are getting ahead. The ones that are just literally rolling the dice with every purchase and they just go bigger, bigger, bigger. Because, I don't know, the universe, whatever you want to call it, always finds a way. I think if you're hardworking, you're honest, creative, like I said, you put in the work. If I was the guy who was just sitting on the couch, goofing off, hoping that this thing was going to turn around, do whatever. I mean, I busted my ass, like this Plaza. I busted my ass day and night because I literally had to work all day, my regular job. And then at night and on weekends, I'd be out there busting my ass trying to, fix up this Plaza. And if you can imagine trying to fix up this gigantic Plaza, like I think it has 5 or 6 buildings. Like I said, 17 apartments, bunch of commercial. I mean, it's a massive plaza. Mm-hmm. And I never thought about parking lots, minimum 50, 100 grand, roof. Every bathroom was old clawfoot tub. Yeah. Like every, you guys know renovation's pretty good. Like all the plumbing was all cast iron, all knob and tube wiring. It was insane. And then I never even I literally didn't figure it out on paper, any expenses, anything. Like I literally just went and bought a Plaza.
This is a don't do this at home.
Yes, this is an absolute don't do this at home. I literally did not figure out one calculation. I just went to the guy and said, I got 30 grand. Can I buy this Plaza? Like literally.
Before you knew the meaning of due diligence.
Yes, I didn't count how much income was coming in. I didn't count anything. I literally just gave this guy $30,000 and a week later I had this Plaza.
So what happened to this long term? Do you still own this property?
Yeah, I still own it. Yeah, my office is in there right now.
Wow.
Yeah, like I said, it's worth probably $1 million right now.
So you just, by sheer hard work,
working
your day job?
Determination. Obviously I knew there was some cash flow because I'd probably say I had about maybe 10 tenants back then.
Yeah.
And
so it's some income.
Yeah, and I was getting it for such a ridiculous low amount of money that I thought, well, I can't screw this up.
Yeah.
But I did no due diligence. Zero. None. I mean, there could have been, stuff from the city on there. There could have been back taxes. There could have been anything. Like I literally could have just shot myself right there. But
so fast forward from then, when is it that because you were working at a job at that time, but at some point from then till now, you stopped working at your day job. So what was the story there?
Well, I actually only stopped doing that. I never really stopped because I had my construction business. I stopped that about 5 years ago. And then I basically just stopped doing my construction business and started flipping houses.
Yeah.
So that's basically what I did. So I just kept on working. And I've always the property management portion of that, I just sort of learned as I went along. And then eventually you just add employees and...
So you were kind of self-employed right from the beginning.
Yeah. Even my construction business, I've basically been self-employed.
If you don't mind, Dan, kind of just fill in some details for the audience. So at what age did you go back to school?
I was about 21 when I went to college.
And then so you kind of wrapped up late 20s, around 30?
Yeah.
And then... when did you buy that first house? That was around...
I was 34, about there. And then I had it for, I think, about close to 2 years.
So around like 36,
37, I think I bought the Plaza.
When you dived into the Plaza? Okay, interesting.
Yeah, which is, really, that's sort of late to the game, right? 37.
It isn't, right? Like, there's so many people that literally never get into the game. Right?
Yeah. When I thought back then, wow, this is really late. And I was actually, at that time, sounds crazy, but even in my late 30s, I was paranoid about even though I spent money like crazy and I had this, crazy lifestyle I was living, in the back of my mind, I always had this, oh my God, what am I going to do? How am I going to retire? How am I going to retire? How am I going to, and I actually, briefly looked into the whole investing. There's really only, you can make money in real estate. You can make it in stocks or saving. Who the hell wants to save? I don't want to save my way to anything, right? I don't want to be skipping my Tim Hortons today because, oh no, it's not on my, I have to save. I just don't have that mentality. I would just rather try to think of a way to make more money.
And so how long did you live in your dad's basement? Did you move out into the Plaza?
I was there. Yeah, I was there for about 6 months. I'm trying to think exactly how that went down. I was there for about 6 months. I remember actually, the funny thing is that I had a couple of God moments, which I'm not I'm not a religious guy at all. Like, and today I'm still not a religious guy, but I had a couple of God moments, which was kind of crazy. So when I wrecked my back the first time around, so I squished a disc in my back, I had to get back surgery. So I went and got back surgery. I was telling you earlier that I thought I should be well and running around in 2 months. And the doctor said, you're going to be 6 months. Well, after 1 month, I was thinking, oh my God, they must have botched the surgery or something, because I'm not 100% better. I was literally hobbling around like I could hardly move. Wow. And I thought, but this is only after a month, right? That's the way you're supposed to be. It was pretty major surgery. After about, something like around 3 months into this thing, I was really starting to get paranoid. Like, oh my God, I think my back could be screwed up for life. It got really bad. It was like a low point. Like I seriously hit a low point. I had to start selling off my stuff. I sold my truck. I sold whatever crap I had. So I was literally hitting bottom. And one day I'm laying in bed and I literally do one of those, God help me out of this, one of these deals. And I said, God, I cannot do this another day. This has to be fixed by tomorrow. This is literally what I said. This has to be fixed by tomorrow, or else I don't know what I'm going to do. Like one of those stupid things that you would say. But I remember saying it. The next day, no word of a lie, I was healed. It was this craziest freaking thing. I got out of bed the next day and I knew something was different, because, normally you get out of bed and, I'd get out of bed and I could barely, you have to almost lift one leg, put it out, lift the other leg. And like I said, I'm not a religious guy, and I don't say, start praying to God for money or something right now. But anyway, so that was one moment. So I was literally, I felt like $1 million after that. Mind you, I still had to go live in my dad's basement, but health-wise, I was fine.
If you don't have your health, right, that's everything.
So another funny story about the God thing. This is another weird God thing. So I'm in my dad's basement. It sucks huge. I have no money. There's no work going on. There's, anyway, and I'm depressed. And I said, one of those, a low moment again, said, God, you got to figure something out, because this isn't my life. Whatever age I was there, my 20s, I was thinking, this isn't my life. You got to get me out of this freaking mess. Sure enough, the next day, no joke, there was a gigantic hailstorm in a little town that was about 15 minutes away, and literally every house in the entire town got hail damage. So every house in the entire town pretty much got a new roof, siding. A lot of them had smashed windows. That's how bad it was.
Oh my God.
Okay. And then at the time I was doing construction, and my specialty was doing siding. And I had called all these siding companies and roofing companies looking for a job for months, and nobody wanted anything done. Nobody wanted to hire me. I literally picked up the phone after that hailstorm. The very next day I called. First guy said, I'll pay you whatever it was. It was a huge amount of money to start doing houses. And I thought, well, I got to call everybody else and we'll see. And every time I made a phone call, it was like, well, this guy's paying me, 300 square, whatever. What are you paying? He's like, well, I'll pay you 4. And I say, well, right back to you. And I call the next guy and I say, well, they're paying 4. He'll say, I'll pay you 5. Anyway, I made so much money in that next year. It was insane. Like it was just, I made probably $100,000 that in like 6 months just working. And that was great. And that helped me get out of that mess there. But
wow.
Yeah. So anyway, there's my God stories. But no, I'm not a religious guy, and it was just a weird thing. But
so one thing I kind of want to highlight, Dan, and feel free to correct me if you disagree, but you say that you're not really big into saving. Yeah. And yet we're talking about you living in your dad's basement, which you found to be a very undesirable situation.
Yes.
But that was allowing you to save up money, right? And then afterwards, you moved into your Plaza. And it sounds like the Plaza was definitely probably not your ideal living situation at that time either. So even if you don't necessarily recognize it as savings, I think that you've always been more than capable of delayed gratification.
Yes and no. Actually, I had no choice. So let's put it that way. I literally had no choice. You can't say I didn't choose to save. So that's a big difference.
You're forced into a situation almost. I
was forced in a situation where I had no money. So there's a big difference between saving on purpose and having no money. Right. And I'm not like I said, I'm not that kind of guy. Actually, one of the funny things is that I'm so crazy with my money, blowing it all the time, that was one of the things that I figured out, before the big Tom Vu moment. Mm-hmm. I was trying to figure out how on earth, because I hated saving, how on earth am I going to figure out a way to make money and still have that same sort of mentality? And one of the ways to do that is later on. I didn't start doing this until later on. After I had about 4 or 5 properties, I started to get the idea how this worked, using the burst strategy, by the way. We'll get to that in a minute. But what I figured is spending money is sort of, and that whole gratification that comes with that, it's something in your personality, right? You're either a saver or you're a spender, and you have that in your personality. Well, I'm a spender. So I sort of did a hack to myself.
Yeah.
And what I would do is I would save up money and then dump it on a house.
Mm-hmm.
So you still get that gratification that you're spending money on something.
Yeah.
Except the thing you're spending money on is making you money.
Yeah. I've actually brought that up before. I get so sick of swiping my credit card at like Rona, Home Depot, Lowe's that like I don't want to spend money anymore. It scratches that itch more than I ever want it to. I'm sick
you
of
get
spending
like
money.
a spending fatigue from it.
I mean, it's very different than I'm going to put $1,000 into my bank account and now it's $1,000 higher. It's different to like I'm going to spend $1,000 and increase the value of my property by a certain amount, or I'm going to buy a rental property and put my money into that. It's definitely a different mentality.
You get a high
saving,
off it,
right? Yeah,
you get off on it. I mean, the chasing the deal, right?
Mm-hmm.
We all love chasing the deal. That's the best part of the whole real estate game. I don't know. I find anyway, chasing the deal. Right?
So, what if we change the word from saving to investing? Like, is investing something that you enjoy doing? Taking your money and rather than spending it, you put it into investments.
Yeah, I absolutely, 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's, I think, like...
just don't call it that.
Yeah, just don't call it saving.
Yeah, who the hell wants that? Yeah, there's nothing sexy about saving. And there's really nothing sexy about saving.
And so, do you enjoy backing yourself into a corner? Because it sounds like multiple times you've kind of backed yourself into a corner in order to really force yourself to grow or to learn.
That's actually, for me, it's actually self-sabotaging behavior is what it is. I have literally just rolled the dice on countless projects over the last 10, 15 years that could have ended up in disaster. And because I'm willing to put in the work to fix it as I go.
Yeah, it doesn't become a disaster.
Yeah, I would not recommend investing. That is a terrible investing philosophy. It's just running out there, buying stuff willy-nilly, not doing your due diligence and figuring no matter how bad it is, I can fix it. No, but that's actually what I did though, literally for 10 years. I don't do that now, but for the first 10 years that I invested, that's all I did. I wouldn't even crunch any numbers. I would walk through the house. My first 10 properties I bought, I didn't write one thing down.
Oh my God.
I literally just walked in, looked around, said, what do you pay for rent and what do you and whatever? And I would say, okay, that's $2,000 a month. And I would just say, yeah, okay, let's do this. And I would just buy the house. No math. And then you would just get the hang of doing that. And you would really get the hang of actually doing that because I had been in construction. So I knew what if a house really needed a lot of work, in my head, I could figure out, okay, this place needs about 50,000 of work. I could literally do that in 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Where a lot of people couldn't do that. I'd know that it needed knob and tube, or I'd know that little things like that I could figure out quickly. Yeah. But for the first 10 deals, I didn't even bother doing that. I stepped on some landmines, but I never lost money in the first 10 years. I've actually only lost money in the last 5. And that's because when you're learning new things, sometimes like flipping houses, I've lost a little bit of money flipping houses here and there. And, that's part of the learning curve.
Yeah. And I think it's really important. Like I've talked to a few different aspiring real estate investors and told them, look, you can spend $10,000, $20,000 paying that coach, paying that guru, or look at spending $10,000, $20,000 in tuition at the University of Hard Knocks. And you can go and even if you don't make money on your first spur or your first flip, as long as you don't lose your shirt, you should be able to walk away with some pretty good life lessons.
You will learn so much more. And if you have a network of people you can go to and ask all these questions, you go through a 3-4 month renovation, you're going to learn way more, I think, than you would from just talking to somebody.
Well, ideally, I think you should have a hybrid of some, you need some coaching, I've tried coaching a few times, and whether I just didn't want to listen or I picked the wrong coach or whatever, I haven't really got that much out of the coaching that I've paid for so far. And again, it's what you pay to, if you pay peanuts, you get monkeys. You heard that.
So, I haven't heard that exact phrase, but that's a great phrase.
Yes. So I haven't paid the big dollars yet. Mm-hmm. I've thought about it a few times. My biggest reason for not paying the big guru type of guys a bunch of money is because I know my own laziness. And I know that if I'm not doing my homework now, paying someone $50,000 is not going to make me do my homework, right? Yeah. All it's going to do is give me more homework. And until I'm ready, which I'm pretty close now, to be honest. They say when the student is ready, the coach will appear. There's, ancient Chinese, whatever. Proverbs, Yes, that is it. And I think I'm ready now, but I think I was too immature before. I think I was too bullheaded before. Mm-hmm. A lot of these things that I wasn't ready to listen. Yeah. So I would have blown $50,000 or $20,000 or whatever coach I went to see. I think I would have blown that money and would have just stubbornly did things the same way I was doing it before. Yeah. But now that I'm a little more mature and I've done enough deals, and I think I'm pretty close, actually. So
yeah. And so one thing I thought would be kind of fun to discuss. So for some of the audience that have been watching my channel forever on YouTube, you'll recognize Dan. Dan was the one that owned the water park that I went and visited probably a year and a half ago now. And so one of the interesting things, Dan, when we chatted way back then, and I'm pretty sure you'll remember it, is I was telling you about how I used the BRRRR investing strategy. And you warned me that I'd always be broke using it. And that was part of the reason or part of the thing that drew you towards the idea of flipping houses. And so I know Kellen currently is a really big BRRRR as well. So I thought it'd be kind of fun to dive into that a little bit further and just discuss your experiences BRRRRing properties for 10 years. And I think the one caveat there is the market you were BRRRRing in was Sarnia, Ontario. And so over those 10 years, I probably didn't see a lot of appreciation. Mm-hmm. Where the last 10 years in Canada, we've seen significant appreciation.
And general. Just to jump in, for anyone who doesn't know what the BRRRR investing strategy is, it's buy, renovate, rent, refinance, repeat. The idea is that after you buy a property that's undervalued, you renovate it, you increase the value of it, and then you refinance the property, pull that equity out, and reinvest it into the next property. And Dan has mentioned that he felt like he's often broke while implementing that strategy, and it's because the repeat stage, you pull that money out and now you have, $50,000 or whatever it is, and you purchase the next property. So you never end up with any money in your bank account.
Yeah. Well, what's dangerous, I think I was telling Matt there, what's dangerous about the BRRRR strategy, and which is, it's fine. So if you're in a flat market, which Sarnia was a pretty flat market for the last 30 years, doing the BRRRR strategy is great, but you're never really getting those big equity gains. Yeah. If I was in Toronto, holy shit, I'd be multimillionaire by now. It was just insane the rest of Ontario. Sarnia is the armpit of Ontario, so we haven't seen those gains. We're actually seeing them now. They just start. All the real estate agents right now are completely freaking out because they've never actually seen multiple bids and over asking. Right?
What is
That's
this?
New.
More than 4% appreciation?
Yeah.
What's happening?
Yeah, so I actually did quite well in the first 10 years that I was doing my investing. I did the BRRRR strategy and I actually didn't know that it was a BRRRR strategy. I didn't know that I was doing that. I thought it was some little thing that I was learned all by myself, and that's exactly what I was doing. I'd fix up a property and just refinance it, take the money out, and just do it all over again. That strategy works great, but I wasn't making very much equity gains on these properties. For example, I'd buy a house for, say, $65,000, which is unheard of today. But buy a house for $65,000. You put, 30,000, let's say, into it or whatever, you're somewhere all in around 100. If it appraises around 130, 140, somewhere around there, when you go and take it to the bank, they're going to, if the finance up to 80, 90%, you're basically getting a house for free. And that's what we did. So we did that for the first 10 houses. But the only problem is when you have those killer cash calls. Now, I would fix up these houses pretty nice. I'd make sure the roof was done and make sure the furnace was done, that kind of thing. But every now and then, you might have a bunch of empties all at the same time for a couple, 2 or 3 months at a time. Or some kind of a disaster where a hot water tank blows up and, you literally got 5,000 or 10,000 worth of expenses. If you don't have that money sitting around somewhere, that really can hurt. And especially if you have to just go out and find it. So I had to do that on several occasions. Whereas if you're, like I said, the market in the rest of Ontario for the last 10 years, you could literally shoot both your feet off, pay too much going in, screw up every renovation, and still at the end of the day, you still got money.
We walked through a property on the Weibo Limo Tour this last weekend, and it was $300,000, and the walls were dripping with nicotine stains. It had been vacant for 3 years, and that whoever owned it still made a killing.
Yeah, it's crazy. Well, those days are going to end at some point. And actually, the people in Toronto are actually some of them are starting to feel it now because the real estate's dropped. I mean, mind you, it went up
so high,
200% in the last 10 years or something, and then it drops 30%, and everybody's freaking out. But the equity gains that people have made in the last 10 years is just absolutely insane.
And so for those 10 years of burn, you obviously were working very hard, like nose to the grindstone stuff. Then you started pivoting into flipping houses to try and generate more cash.
I did, yeah, because it makes sense. So if I keep the portfolio I had, I was making some decent cash flow off of that. But get out of that whole, I thought if I could just buy 1 or 2 properties a year and then start doing flips. Mm-hmm. And because I had a pretty good construction background, I actually had a construction business going on. Now, I wasn't doing as much as I was prior to that now because it took quite a bit of time looking after all these properties now. I started flipping houses. And I thought, this is going to be the easiest money I ever made.
Yeah.
And it really, really was tough. The first few years were really tough. I flipped I think the first year I flipped like 4 homes, and the second year I flipped. I've actually only been doing it. It's about 3 or 4 years now. Time flies. The first year, like I said, I flipped about 3 or 4 homes. Second year, 3, 4, and then the third year I flipped. I thought, well, I'll flip more homes and make more money. And I actually made the same amount of money flipping 3 or 4 homes as I did flipping 10, because once all of a sudden you scale your business, you go through all the growing pains. And I went through every growing pain that you can imagine, having 3 different crews. If you're not watching what's going on, if you don't have a really, really good system, you could just, and I started buying houses thinking everything I touched would turn to gold. And I found out, we were joking earlier about me just walking in and saying, yes, I'll take it, that kind of deal. I got cocky for a while there, and I would, just because I bought a house for $25,000, no joke.
Wow.
A 2-story house, $25,000 I paid. I sold it for $189,000. I broke even.
Oh my God. How much did you put in?
I paid $25,000. Think about it. I paid $25,000 for this house. 6 months later, I sold it for $189,000. I broke even. That's how bad that flip went. Every single thing that could possibly go wrong went wrong. All these hidden things that were everywhere. The electrical was supposed to be, 15, it turned into 30. The furnace was supposed to be 10, it turned into 20. Just every single thing was backwards. So the people out there, the listeners that are listening to this, the newbies out there that think, they watch too many TV shows about flip this house and stuff. Just because you get a house, you can get a house for free and lose money, right?
Yeah,
you can absolutely get a house for free and lose money. And I got cocky and I thought, I got this house for 20. I told everybody I bought this house when I bought it for $25,000. I was bragging. I was feeling really good about myself. Yeah. Dan's so smart. Yeah. It was actually ended up about 8 months actually by the time we got that thing sold, right? Because it had 2 months to sell it. But the flip itself took 6 months, but it was 8 months. You have to figure, not only did I break even, it was 8 months out of my life. I didn't add any of the time that I had in there. And I had a lot of money into that project. But anyway, so I learned in the first few years, whatever.
That's the best way to learn.
Yeah. And now you know what? It's always about systems. And I was lazy for the first 10 years and I didn't want to do systems and I didn't like paperwork and I'd like to pawn things off on other people. And even though I was working hard every day, it's figuring out the right things to do.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Like, I mean, if I'm running around doing $10 an hour jobs, I can just work until I'm, 24 hours a day.
Exactly.
And you're not going to make any money.
We see it with so many initial real estate investors where, they're focused on saving that $10 or $15 an hour by painting their own property. Yeah. But then that results in them not renting out their other property. Right.
Yeah.
And when you really break it down and look at it, you probably could have found an easy substitute for your painting versus renting out that unit.
Absolutely. Yeah. At the beginning, I was trying to focus on doing the jobs that, like for example, I was good at everything. And that was actually a big problem, being good at everything. I was a jack of all trades and I was literally fantastic at everything. So I thought, well, I'll just save money here. I'll save money there. Drywaller doesn't show up. Great. I'll do it. The roofer's not here. I'll do it. And that was dumb. And that was one of the projects that I worked on that I really, really learned that, if I have to wait a month for the right trade to show up, it's better to wait a month for that trade to show up and go work on something else than to just get in there and do it yourself sometimes, because you literally it just ends up costing you.
Yeah. And I think this is kind of a good segue into very recently you've started really transitioning your business. Are you willing to kind of share that? You're looking at maybe selling a couple properties, outsourcing your property management. Mm-hmm. Do you mind kind of talking through with the audience?
Well, part of the reason, sure. We discussed this before, but part of the reason I'm selling part of my portfolio is you start to get worn down, the whole being broke thing all the time. And you could have $1 million on paper, but if you're going around in an old shitty beat up pickup truck, you're not dressing right, you're not feeling right, you're not going anywhere, you're not taking vacations, you're not doing, you know what I mean? You're not celebrating the wins. Mm-hmm. So you have to stop, I think, sometime. And I'm only realizing that now, right? Money is nice, but having your sanity is another thing. But also your personal, how you feel on the inside, I think is a big thing. And I think if you're going around and, because I was actually the construction guy and I still am that guy. And I don't mind going around with my dirty jeans and my boots and whatever and getting in there and getting dirty and doing that kind of stuff. But it was starting to feel like I was literally living like that, like day and night. I'd be, you get up in the morning, you put on your work stuff. It's all dirty. You go to work. And then, at night I'd come home, have supper, and then I'd be running around doing other things. And it seemed like I was always in my old truck with my work stuff on. I didn't feel good on the inside. And it's not like, again, it's not about all money and everything. So that's part of the reason why I thought, you know what, I'm going to take a little break. I have plenty of years left to make money. You're never going to lose that. I've gained that knowledge. It's not like it's going anywhere. I had to feed my inside a little bit. So selling a few properties and also having a portfolio of 100 properties and they all look like shit, that doesn't do anybody any good either. Yeah. It's better to have 5 really nice looking properties, or at least nicely run. Mm-hmm. Because once your properties start to get worn down, then you start to get lower quality of tenants, right, and that creates more problems. It's a vicious cycle. It's a downhill spiral. I wasn't doing that, but what I noticed was I wasn't growing. I was just sort of staying the same, and I don't want to be staying the same for 10 years. So I want to grow, and I think the spending money to make money. I think creating a better image for myself will attract better people into my circle, and and I want to be on that spiral going up instead of going down.
How does this all fit into your long-term plan now, or maybe even your short-term plan? For a long time, it was definitely acquiring. You kind of want to sell some off, focus a bit more on your, maybe even you can call it your mental health, or just just enjoying your life, living it the way you want to live it. So what are some of your goals right now? How do you want to be living life? How do you want to take your business at this point?
Well, it's a little more slow and steady now, rather than just buying everything I can see and just going, gotta make money. Now I'm more focusing on quality rather than quantity. Like I said earlier about, the year I did 10 flips, I made the same amount of money I did the year I flipped 3 houses. It's a matter of working smarter, not harder. Yeah. I think that's what it's all about. We go to these real estate things all the time, and the first question everybody asks you, how many doors? Yeah. Every single one of those things. Hi, I'm Dan. Hi, I'm Bob. How many doors do you have? Right? It's just what everybody asks.
It makes you not want to sell.
Well, no, and it definitely is an ego thing. Yeah. And so we haven't really talked about it on the podcast yet, but I'm looking at selling some properties, and I'd be lying if I didn't say that part of my ego is the dude that owns X number of properties. Yeah. And so it does take a bit of a mental shift to get past that burden of maybe I don't need to always be accumulating properties, right?
Yeah, quality. And you know what? At the end of the day, it doesn't matter. There's guys out there that are, I'm sure, making $1 million a year, but they're blowing $1 million a year,
yes.
Right? And you have to...
It's all about what you save, right, Dan?
It is about what you save. Yeah, my philosophy is more make more. But I actually don't even think about that stuff. So for me, it's funny about talking about savings. So for me, I don't see it as savings. I see it as adding to my net worth. That would be, so that's the way
Trying to get a new high score.
Yeah.
That's what I look at.
Gamifying.
Yeah.
Because you know what? Saving actually doesn't make me feel good inside. So that's this, and maybe it's just me,
Mm-hmm.
right? So for me, when I think saving, I'm thinking lack,
Yeah.
right? And I don't.
Deprivation.
Yeah.
I mean, you're not the first person. There's like I've heard at least half a dozen people say at the end of every year they're broke. And like these are people who have significant net worths, and it's because they don't want money sitting in their bank account. They don't want to be saving money. They want to be investing their money. And like whether they're buying into stocks or whether they're buying into real estate, they want to make sure their money's working for them. It's not just about putting it and sitting in a bank account. And I wanted to say, so you were talking about back when you were, I think, mid 30s, early 30s, and you said, now I got to start thinking about my retirement and that kind of thing. What did your goal look like at that point? Or did you have a goal? And
no, hell no. I didn't have goals until last year. Like literally. Yeah. I just thought, well, I'll just get a bunch of properties and my life will be good.
Yeah.
Right.
So I was going to ask, like, how did it develop over time, or did it kind of just now you just started thinking about it again?
Well, is this a wealth podcast? Is it a real estate podcast? It's a wealth podcast.
It's financial independence,
anything
real
involves
estate,
wealth, finance.
So I would probably not be the right guy to ask this stuff, but it's fun being on this podcast because I've literally been winging it my entire investment career, whatever you want to call it, last 15 years. I've literally been winging it, and every time I've tried the goals, I don't like, again, it's just not my personality, but I've tried setting goals. I'm not going to lie. I'm not going to be one of these guys that come on here and say, oh yeah, every day I get up and I Grant Cardone, I, pull out the legal pad and I write down my goals. And then if you don't have goals, you're a dreamer, and all this stuff that people just say over and over and over. Well, I mean, I don't want to promote not having goals, but for me personally, it just wasn't a huge thing that I focused on.
That's really interesting.
Yeah, I just knew that if I kept on, now you have to be smart, obviously, but I knew that buying real estate was my ticket to financial freedom or whatever, my retirement.
Yeah.
And I knew that if I bought so many properties over a certain amount of time, that I would end up being able to retire happy with a great income. Mind you, it might change. I'm maturing a little bit more, and I might start setting, some type of goals. But every time I've set goals, I write them down and I say, okay, I'm going to do this, and it never does. It just never happens.
Well, this could be an interesting thought exercise. So this might trigger you a bit, but lean fire is the idea of living on under $40,000 a year. There's a lot of people who think that'd be more than enough. I know that, like, in my current living situation, it's almost half of that. And a lot of that comes from house hacking, living for free. I mean, if I don't have to pay for my living expenses, then all I'm paying for is my food, transportation, travel, that kind of thing. But I assume that you don't want to live on under $40,000 a year. So with financial independence, we always talk about something called the 4% safe withdrawal rate. So if you were to say sell all of your properties and you would have X amount in your bank account at that point, you can safely withdraw 4% of that total value every year, essentially indefinitely.
Yeah.
So if you have $1 million in the bank, you can withdraw $40,000 a year and spend all of that money, and you'll indefinitely be able to use that $1 million. If you have $2 million,
living off the interest or living off the dividends,
exactly.
Or living off whatever. Yeah.
If you're investing it in like index funds, kind of thing, ETFs. If you have $2 million, now you've got $80,000 a year to spend. If you've got $3 million, you've got $120,000 a year.
Hallelujah. So $10 million, yeah.
Right. So that's the thing. Is like, have you ever thought about kind of how much it is you want to spend on an annual basis? Because that would really tell you how much it is. Like, that would kind of tell you your goal, right? Like, for my thought exercises, currently my travel involves going to Algonquin Park for $50 and sleeping in the woods with my buddies, kind of thing, and like having campfires. I love that. But there's a good chance that'll change in the future. I might want to do a lot more, expensive-ish travel, right? Like, I love the idea of renting a motorcycle in Iceland and riding around for a month, kind of thing. I think that'd be a blast. This is how much it would look like if I expand my lifestyle, and now I spend $10,000 a year on travel or $20,000 a year on travel. Like, at what point is it like, I wouldn't need to spend that much? Like, can you see yourself spending more than $150,000 a year?
I'll tell you, yeah. So I spend 100% less than $40,000 a year.
Wow.
And not by choice, just because I am happy with, I've never actually calculated it, but I just know in the back of my head. I spend less than $40,000 a year for sure.
Yeah.
But I don't even want to figure out what I spend because I don't even care.
Yeah.
But I want to know that I'm investing for my future. One thing I actually keep track of is my net worth. That's the only thing I keep track of.
Yeah.
Monthly expenses, I've actually never done that, ever.
Yeah.
And I don't hope to God I never have to. I just have a lifestyle that I'm accustomed to. I want to increase my lifestyle. Other people, I wouldn't recommend that. I mean, probably the smart thing to do is to look at what you expend every month, every year. Me personally, I said that's not me at all.
Yeah.
I want to have so much money that I don't even think about that stuff and I don't care.
So is there a threshold for what amount of money you would know that you'd never have to have a care again?
Oh, at least 10 million.
Okay.
At least.
I think that's gone up a bit. I think we were talking last year, and last year we were talking about, you were saying that you saw hard money lending as probably one of the major ways that you would produce passive income once you decided to check out. I'm pretty sure then you were at 5 million.
Yeah. So that's funny that you say that. So I've actually thought about it after that conversation.
Oh, okay.
And I don't think 5 million would cut it.
Because I guess my thoughts are with $5 million, if mainly that was in hard money lending, I'd probably expect an average return of, say, between 8 and 10%. If we use 10% just because it's a nice, really easy round number, we're talking 500,000. Now, whether it's Uncle Sam or Uncle CRA is going to take their cuts, they're probably taking half of that. Yeah. So now we're dealing with about $250,000 a year in income at the 5 million mark. Double that for 10 million.
Yeah, I don't need that again, right? I don't need that because I'm certainly not spending that.
But that would give you a certain level of flexibility where you would just never feel like you had to think about anything.
It would just give me a great comfort level. But now, remind you, I'm going to be, a lot of people spend less in their retirement. Yes. I plan on spending a hell of a lot more.
And I think that's fair.
I want my retirement to be spectacular. I want to be taking off for a month at a time. Oh, I'm going to go to Europe for a month, or I'm going to go to Africa for a month, or I'm going to go whatever. If I want to buy a sports car, if I want, again, I don't want to think, oh, geez, the $125,000 sports car, and I don't know if this is going to fit into my budget, and I don't know, and oh, geez, the price of gas. I literally do not want to care in the world. When I retire, I don't want to care I want to be making way more money than I could even hope to spend. And that's my goal. And we talked about the 5 million. The 5 million I'm sure would suffice. But why the hell would I limit myself to 5 million, right? That's limited thinking.
So are you giving yourself a time range then? Like, is there a certain age point where you're like, no matter what, I'm going to have to pull the trigger and retire at that point?
No, I think I'll just know when I've had enough.
Yeah.
When that time comes, your circle will also tell you, right? The close friends that you have, you're going to notice possibly that your friends are retiring. Right? Yeah, your friends are retiring or whatever. That's funny. That's hilarious.
Well, I just turned 28 yesterday, so it's
big inflection point.
Coming to be time.
Yeah, it's nice to have all this time on your hands. So you're sort of semi-retired, aren't you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Matt's been semi-retired for a couple of years now.
2 years.
31.
Yeah.
Almost. Yeah.
Yeah. So. But it's all the lifestyle you want. Right?
Well, with Matt, he quit his job, and that's technically, we're going to use the word retirement, but I'm pretty sure he's working just as hard, if not harder than he has, spending more hours in the day, working on projects that he wants to be working on. And that's what we were talking about earlier before the show is it's not about retiring. And the kind of people that we hang out with and the kind of people who reach these goals, they're not the kind of people who are just going to stop. They're the kind of people who grind and who enjoy the thrill of the deal and who enjoy working their asses off and seeing the fruits of their labor. These are the kind of people who don't need to worry. They want the passive income so they don't have to think about working. But they honestly probably won't even need that passive income because they're going to keep working.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's also better to shoot for 10 and end up with 5 than shoot for 5 and end up with 2.
Yeah.
So I'm not really shooting for anything, but in the back of my mind, that's just
the benchmark. Yeah.
I mean, it'd be great to make it to 10. The funny thing is that if you watch any of these big, like the Grant Cardones out there or the Gary Vees or the whatever, all those kinds of guys, one big break, one lucky deal, one whatever. And you can really go up that ladder because you go from, say, net worth to 1 million to say, well, actually, you don't even have to do any of this crazy stuff. If you were a friend of mine in Toronto who has a real estate group, he has, I think it's 25 properties. So 2 years ago, he sent out a Facebook to his friends, a message or whatever, and said his properties is 25 single family homes. Okay.
Okay.
And they're not paid off or anything. He's got mortgages on all. Okay. 25 single-family homes. In 1 year, they went up $7.5 million.
Wow.
In 1 year.
Yeah.
Okay? So people don't even think of that stuff. Your life can change. Do you think he thought of that? Do you think that he thought, in the next 3 years, my properties are going to go up $10 million?
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure he never had any idea that was going to happen, right? But you hope, you buy these 25 properties or whatever, and you hope they go up 4% a year, or 8% a year, whatever. Hopefully they don't go down. Yeah. And maybe over the course of 10, 15 years, they get paid down to almost nothing or whatever. And this is what your retirement's going to be. But you don't know. You don't know if the property values in your city or whatever are going to go through the roof. You don't know any of this stuff.
Yeah, it's very unpredictable.
Yeah.
That's why we usually just tend to look at cash flow, mortgage pay down, and if you get appreciation, cherry on the cake.
Yeah, that plaza that I bought there, the water park one.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's 10 acres, huge property. And it's right in the section of town that the city has no choice, but we're going that direction.
To grow, yeah.
Yeah. And, 2 years ago, I thought, wow, if someday I could get $1 million for this property, how amazing would that be?
Yeah.
Now, realistically, I could get $3 million, right? You don't know. You literally don't know. You could be the spot for the next Costco. You could be the whatever. Yeah. You literally don't know. You could start a business that could really take off. Someone could need that for some. I mean, you're not going to find oil or anything. But if Sarnia goes through a crazy boom, like some of these others, which isn't unreasonable, the value of that property could double easily in 5 years. I mean, I'd love to sell it for $3 million and literally retire on my 10% from lending out money.
Yeah.
Who knows what?
So the lesson here is never sell, because you never know what'll happen.
Well, no, I'm selling now because you know what? You have to, we talked about this earlier. I talk to people in real estate and they say, they totally regret selling anything. Because some of my properties right now, to be honest with you, I'm selling 3 properties. I'm going to make some pretty good money. Next year, 100%, and I'm 100% sure of this, the properties I'm selling today are going to be worth $100,000 at minimum more than what I'm selling them for right now. So that's killing me. That is killing me.
It is, but I think you need to think about the mental bandwidth that's going to free up, and what are you going to do with those new profits?
You're 100% right. I have to think about that, and I think about what it's going to do for me right now. I can't think about what's, you can't look backwards. You always have to look forwards.
And so I think maybe before we dive into the Fire 4, I just had one more question. So what have friends and family said throughout your journey?
They've been pretty supportive. They do the typical, my brothers, be careful, you're going to lose your money, you're crazy, all that stuff. My brothers haven't been very supportive, but not in a very negative way, but just in he's paranoid, he doesn't like investing or whatever. He has no money. Because he has that mentality, no risk, right? Just everything safe. My sisters, they're supportive. My parents are pretty supportive. And I've been extremely lucky that my partner that I've chosen in life has been hugely supportive. So
I think that's huge.
Yeah,
massive.
Huge. Yeah, I got really lucky. The funny thing about my partner, Kim, that I'm with now, so we started dating right when I bought my first property. And I was a complete maniac back then. I used to party. Yeah, I used to party hard. In my warehouse, I used to have a beer fridge, and it was always full. Every day after work, all the guys would drink and get drunk and whatever. And then we'd just go start tearing your apartment apart and do whatever. I mean, this was all the time. It was absolute insanity. And I was dealing with, crazy tenants in that building at first and stuff. So the first few years that we were together were completely crazy. And then, after a few years of that, she said, listen, this is just a little too crazy for me. We gotta call it quits. And I said, no, just stick around a little longer. It's going to get better. And thank God it did. But but no, she's been 100% supportive, and my family's pretty good. They know that no matter what they say to me, I'm not going to listen anyway. Right? I'm just going to go do what I'm going to do. And
it seems like a resounding theme in a lot of it.
Yes.
Well, I think you almost have to be that stubborn or that crazy, right? Because there's always going to be doubters, and quite frequently there'll be haters too. So let's jump into the Fire 4, Dan. So we'd like to ask the same 4 questions of all of our guests. And the first one is it's inspired by our good friend Paul Plumstead. And the question simply is, what are you grateful for?
I'm grateful for an amazing partner. My girlfriend, I'm grateful to her for being so supportive all these years.
Awesome.
That was an easy answer.
Yeah.
So what is a guilty pleasure or maybe a tool or something in life that you can't live without?
I'd have to say it's tools. I'm a tool nut. I'm actually a car nut too, but I don't have that kind of money to be spending. So for me, a guilty pleasure is tools. I'm like literally Tim the Toolman Taylor kind of guy, or I'm like Brian Palmer.
What color? Are all your tools yellow or red? Or
no, but yeah, well, you start to lean towards a brand, right? There's DeWalt, there's Makita, whatever. Even though I think tools should be made better than what they are. They're really plasticky nowadays, and you drop it, they break or whatever. It's not the best, but I'm actually starting to spend ridiculous money on nice stuff. Like I went and bought, new table saws and new chop saws, and I don't scrimp on tools now. I used to buy whatever I could afford, and that's terrible thinking because you want the best tools for the job. And so that is a guilty pleasure.
Awesome. And so is there a frugality tip or life hack that you'd like to share with our audience? So maybe just some way, a tip on how they can save money or...
Yes, that is really funny. That is really funny. Yeah, what is a life hack? I got to try to think of a good one here. That is really funny because I'm not the saver guy, right? That is really funny. Yeah, I don't know. I would just say go with the generic thing. If you gave me some time to think of it, if you sent me the questions earlier, I could have thought of a good life hack.
Maybe for you, it's focus on the top line and not the bottom line.
Yeah.
Focus on earning more and not necessarily spending less.
I don't know. I'll give you a good life hack. My truck that I absolutely love, it's like a 2003 Dodge Ram. The wheel wells on all these old trucks, they start to go out, right? They rust out on the wheel wells. And your truck can literally go from looking like a $50,000 truck to a $10,000 truck if your wheel wells are rusted out. I was going to go buy a new truck. And then I thought, I don't know, spend $50,000. So I sent away for one of those, it's wheel well covers, and it looked like the mudders or whatever they call that, the plastic looking ones or whatever. Well, I put those things on my truck this weekend, and I swear to God, it looks like I have a brand new truck. My truck went from a $10,000 truck to a $50,000 truck in literally one weekend by putting some plastic wheel wells.
That's actually a really
great tip.
Yeah, absolutely. It looks amazing. It looks absolutely amazing.
So what would the hero of your own movie do right now in your life?
Public speaking. Hey,
you're taking the first step right
100% is public speaking. That has been like my worst fear my entire life. Every year I say, this is the year. And I just I chicken out. I'm getting better for sure. Before I couldn't even do walking around with my phone on a selfie stick. I couldn't even look at the video. I couldn't even look at my camera. I was so
We've all gone through
paranoid.
We've all gone through it.
Yeah, so I'm very slowly getting into there. But yeah, public speaking 100%. I've dreamed my whole life of being able to do public speaking, and I think I could really help some people. I think that's what ultimately at the end of the day, that's what you want to do. I think that's the ultimate goal in life, is to be able to help people, help other people. And I think I could probably help a lot of people if I could just get my public speaking game going.
We're going to get your public speaking game there.
I think we got some opportunities for you.
Yeah, so once that...
Yeah, this year's going to be transformative.
Yeah, okay. So, that...
Yeah, that was a perfect answer. So, yeah, thanks so much for being on the show, Dan. And before we wrap up, we always like to get our guests to ask our audience a question. And so just as an example, what some previous guests have asked, Michael Rosard asked, what's enough? When do you know you have enough money? Our buddy Tom asked simply, where would you like to travel to?
If you could retire anywhere in the world, where would you want to retire?
I would ask the same question you guys asked me about, my number, yet last year was 5 million. I think this year it's 10 million. So I would ask you guys, what is your number?
Oh, do you have to ask us? That's interesting.
Yeah. Okay. So first of all, audience, jump on the Facebook page and you can answer Stan's question about what is enough. But I don't think me and Kellen should get off easy on this one. So I'll go first, Kellen. So it is difficult for me to actually say what is enough. I've been doing a lot of reflecting on it recently. And part of that reflection has led me to the idea of selling off some of my properties when I've literally never sold a property before. And what is enough? I honestly think enough in theory for me is $50,000 a year in passive income. However, whatever my reptilian brain or whatever you want to call it wouldn't accept that as an answer either. Same with why Dan wants 10 instead of 5. So I think that realistically for me to never think again about money, $100,000 in very passive, very safe income would be enough. And what do I think that looks like? I honestly think that that's still something relatively modest. I think that that's maybe $1.5 to $2 million and liquid kind of net assets that would give me enough.
Yeah, I don't have a good answer to this question, but definitely for me right now, I'm spending somewhere around $25,000 a year. I think if I doubled that as well, ironically, a pretty similar number, it would probably be more than enough for me. But I think that the question really comes down to when do you stop? When do you stop working and when do you stop growing? Not necessarily when do you have enough money. And for me, I think that first of all, I'm gonna stop when I don't enjoy it anymore. So at that time, I'm gonna re-gear whatever it is I'm working on to make sure that I'm working on whatever the thing I want to be doing. And if that earns me no profit, if that's me sitting around watching Netflix all day, which it definitely isn't, then that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to stop working when I don't enjoy it anymore.
Awesome. Perfect. Well, yeah, thanks again, Dan. And so if anyone wants to follow along with Dan's journey, you can find him on YouTube. We'll put a link in the podcast description, as well as we're going to get him on Instagram. Right now, he's got 2 Instagram accounts, so we got to figure out which one he's going to get rid of. And
I noticed that.
But we will get
I have
one
2
for
Facebook
him.
too.
Yes, so it's very messy right now. We're going to clean up his social media problems soon, guys. Yes. So just hang in there, kitty, but we'll put a link to it.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.
Thanks for being on the show, Dan.
That was awesome. Dan's such an open and genuine guy. I really appreciate his honesty and his insights into getting cocky in real estate and thinking you've got the Midas touch. There's been a few times I came close to that, and a few times I know I've fallen into that trap.
I remember the first time I met Dan, I had no idea that he had an empire of properties. He came across as a very down-to-earth person. He was willing to teach and still open-minded to continue learning.
And while you're waiting for the next episode, jump over to Facebook and join the London on Fire community and follow us on Instagram @OnFirePodcast.
And make sure to tune in to the next On Fire podcast to meet more people, hear their stories, and learn from their mistakes.
Thanks for listening. This is Matt.
And Kellen signing off.
And until next episode, remember, being normal. Buying stuff doesn't make you happy. And always remember what Carol Burnett said.
Only I can change my life. No one can do it for me.
I hope they left us a written review.